Hello, everyone. Welcome to webinar 5, I believe it is. This webinar is going to be entirely about how to manage the classes on your account and how to add new pupils, move pupils between classes, and maybe some teachers are left and you want to create new teacher IDs, etc., etc. So very useful for somebody who is managing the entire account. It is going to assume a certain amount of knowledge. Yeah, if you are confused by it, it may be that you need to go back and do some of our earlier webinars. But right, okay, I'm going to jump in and share my screen. Okay. Is that working? Can everybody see that? Raise your hand if you can't see it. We have got Sue here with us in the background. If you've got any questions, please put them in the Q&A and Sue will get to them. Right, I've got no raised hands, so I'm assuming that we are good to go and that everybody can see the screen. Right, okay, so obviously what we're looking at here is teacher mode. So this is the screen that you see when you log in with your generic Busy Things login for all teachers. As I've said in previous webinars, at this point, Busy Things doesn't know who you are. And that's why you've got this little group of characters here and not your busybody. So now to manage all the class migration, you need to have an ID with what we call admin status. And that is something that you can opt into when you first create your teacher ID. Now, so I'm going to have a look. I'm going to have a look in Manage Setups. And Manage Setups is showing me all the setups that currently exist on this school account. Now, if I was going to set about moving pupils between classes, I would use these filters up here to sort by setup type. Because hopefully if you've been listening on the earlier webinars, you'll realize that only registration groups and teaching groups are setups that have pupils assigned to them. These simple setups down here that are made by us are open for all to play with. You don't need to worry about any of those with this icon. But if we look here, we've gone into Manage Setups. Remember, we're not logged in with a teacher ID, and that's why all of these are grey, because they're not accessible. So this one is a registration group, class 1, made by Mr. Jones. So Mr. Jones must have his own ID, and he can go into Manage Setups and click on that and edit it as I've been showing you in earlier webinars. But what we want to do is have an ID that can open up the possibility of editing all of these setups that are grey in one go. So, for example, if we were going to move all the children from class 1 into class 2, we could do that in a kind of roundabout way, but there would come a point when you'd have class 1 and class 2 children in here, and that's not what we want. So we have put together a whole new area that is going to make this process much easier. So on this account, nobody has administrator status. I've set that up on purpose, because when I go in here, when you have a teacher ID with administrator status, they have a little gold hat here, okay? So I'm going to be the very first person in this school to claim administrator status. So I'm going to quickly make a teacher ID. You've probably seen me do this before. And look, here it says my status, make me an administrator. So this is step one in taking control of all the setups. So I am going to be Mr. Admin, give myself a code. Actually, I will be Mrs. Admin, and paste. I have been emailed a code, which, excuse me one moment. Like that. Which is coming over here, and I can put that in there. So this is a process that you need to go through in order to make your own class. But I'm going through it because none of the teachers have opted to take administrator status. Okay. So because I opted to be the school administrator, it has actually just taken me straight into the teacher admin area. That's accessed up here. Because I'm logged in, it lets me go straight in there. If I was logged in as a different teacher, Mrs. Biggins, and I went up here, it's telling me, sorry, you can't go in here, only Mrs. Admin can go in here. So once a teacher has taken on the role of an administrator, any future IDs that are made on this account will not be able to opt into being an administrator. That option that we just saw when we made this new teacher ID to make myself an administrator will not be there for future IDs. So I'm going to imagine, there's the little gold hat that I was talking about. I have come along and I've made myself an admin for the entire school. Now, it could be that, I'll just talk a bit more about administrator status. It could be that you do actually want a second member of staff to have this status, and you can do that, but it has to come from the person who has claimed it first. So if I go into manage teachers and classes, what that does is it gives me a list of all the teachers that are currently on this account. And there's me at the moment, and if you notice it says brackets admin. Now so let's imagine that I'm leaving the school and maybe I want Mr. Jones to become the administrator on this account. So what I would do is I'd log in as the administrator and I can edit his details and I can make him an administrator as well. Okay, so we've both got the status now. We can both go into this area here off the teacher admin area. I'm looking today at this bottom panel here, end of year processes. We just, we're working in this first button at the moment, manage teachers and classes. We went in there and we did that. So let's start with the scenario of there's a new teacher starting in September. So I'm going to create a new teacher ID for this new member of staff that's joining. So there's going to be Mrs. King. I'm going to just simply click create teacher ID. Oh, sorry, I need to give them an email address, and that's because it will give them their teacher ID details in an email that's sent automatically. And look, there's that option again to make this staff also an administrator. You can have multiple administrators. Right, okay. So it says a welcome email has been sent to the teacher containing their passcode. Okay, so Mrs. King is a new teacher joining in September. And if you look in this column here, it says owned setups. She doesn't currently own a class at all. So there's nothing there. I'm just going to, as the administrator, I can do virtually anything. So I'm going to just change her passcode to one that I can remember in case we need to go back in as her. And if you do that, then you will need to resend that email that just went, because this email that goes to welcome her to Busy Things has her passcode in it. So I've just sent another copy to Mrs. King. Okay, so we've added her. She can now log into Busy Things and use her passcode, but she won't currently have any classes in her My Busy Things area. So let's imagine that we've got a member of staff that is leaving. So we're going to say that Mrs. Biggins of class 2 is actually leaving. So all I do is delete. Okay, now that doesn't delete her class. That puts that class back into the managed setups area without an owner. So nobody currently owns class 2. All the pupils are still in class 2, but there is no owner of it, so it will not appear in anybody's My Busy Things area. So let's say we want Mrs. King is taking over and we would like her to take ownership of class 2. I'm going to go to manage setups. I am going to find class 2 and I'm going to go to its settings. And you can see here it says, this setup is not owned by any teachers. All teachers can modify it. So I'm going to manage the owners, add Mrs. King. She is now the owner of that. So she's taken over class 2 and Mr. Jones has left. So that's just giving you a very simple scenario of creating a new teacher, removing an old teacher, and maybe giving their class to the new teacher. But obviously, end of year processes can be a lot more complicated than that. And also be mindful of the fact that renaming and transferring ownership of classes is not really the way to go, because setups are all, when they're created, the content level is decided. So you can't just rename a setup to become the new year 3 class if it used to be a year 1 class, because the content in there is actually set to year 1. What you ideally need to do, and what I'm going to show you today, is start moving the pupils between the existing classes. Okay, so we've added a new teacher, removed an old teacher. Another thing you may want to do is make a brand new class. So you can do that here, manage teachers and classes. Let's give me a class. So I am going to create new class setup. We've been through this process before. This is going to be my class. I'm going to call it class 4. And it's going to be year 3-4 class. So very quickly, I'll go through the process that I've shown you previously and import a pupil list. correct capitals and shorten, save, close. Okay, so I've created a brand new class, a year 3-4 class just for me, and I've imported the pupils into it. Right, okay. So, right, so that was another scenario. There's a lot of different things you may want to do. Right, but now we've got 4 classes in the school and the correct teachers are assigned to them. But now we need to sort out which pupils are in which class. So the next button down is transfer, remove pupil IDs. And this is where we actually start to configure the migration process, okay? So when you click that button, you're going to get a table full of the registration groups and the teaching groups on this account. And step by step, we want to choose what to do with each of them. So if we go into class 1, which is a content level of upper reception, and we click choose what to do. And let's keep it simple to start with. Let's say all these pupils are moving into class 2. Okay, so I've selected move all pupils into the same new class. This is a school where the class stays together and it moves up year by year. So please select what you want to do with the pupils in class 1. Move these pupils to class 2. And I get a little list there of all the pupil names just to glance at. So I'm going to click OK. Okay. Now, when you've chosen something to do, it goes green. That's just to say you have actually requested to do something here. Okay, so we've moved all of those into class 2. But if we don't do anything with class 2 before we hit start migration, then class 2's existing pupils are still going to be in there. So we need to decide what to do with class 2. So if this was a school that everybody was moving up, we'd obviously be clicking there and we would be moving the pupils into class 3 here. Okay, but I don't want to show you the same thing again. So this is going to be a little bit of a muddle. I'm going to show you different scenarios with each class. So obviously you've got the scenario of doing nothing. That would be if the content level, you don't want to change the content level. It may be a teaching group, I don't know, that pupils are just going to carry on with in the next school year. Move all pupils into the same new class, that's what we've just seen, that's nice and easy. But sometimes in schools, you want to split the class. So in class 2, all these pupils exist. And what I can do is I can say, well, actually, these top 3 here, notice that button became blue. I want those to go into class 3. And I'm going to apply that to those pupils. So their drop-down box has changed to move to class 3. I don't need to use the check boxes. I can go one by one if I want to. But let's say the rest, that these ones here are all actually going to move to class 4. Okay. I made class 4 and I added a whole load of pupils, so class 4 is looking pretty full. If class 4 was the top class, there's a good chance that you want to delete some pupils in class 4. So I'm going to just say OK to that. Okay, so this box has got wider because it's got more information to tell us. So we've decided that these 3 children are moving to class 3. These children are all moving to class 4. Okay, I'm going to go into class 4 and I'm going to say, I don't want to delete all the pupils in this class, but I've obviously, maybe I've got more in here than I want now, and these are the ones that are leaving. So I'm going to delete a pupil. Now, when you delete a pupil, you are deleting them from busy things and you are deleting all their work. So be very careful about that. So we're saying okay to that. So these are the 7 pupils that are now leaving the school, and I don't want to keep their work. We will get on to archiving work. So what you're building up here is a complete picture of what you want to do. So I would imagine that you're going to spend quite a while in here before you hit the migration button. Now, don't be too nervous about it, because it's very easy to come back and do it again and keep tweaking. The only thing that you can't retrieve, as it were, or correct is deleting. So it's, you need to be a bit more mindful of that. Okay, so I'll just leave that on do nothing, and now I'm going to hit start migration. Okay, what you get is a little summary of what you're doing. Just, this isn't as useful as the screen below. If you need to just think, if you think, oh, I've selected to delete 5 pupils, which ones are they? You'll need to cancel that and just look for it in here to remind yourself of what you're about to do. Okay, so when you go next here, you're going to get a question about what to do with the pupils' files. So when a child is working in a class, they're building up a collection of saved files. And sometimes it's nice to take them with them so that you can see across their time at your school how their work has improved year on year, and they can maybe look back at some work they did in reception, etc. So we imagine that you would want to archive old files and have the children take them with them to their new class. Now, when you select that option here, archive old files for the whole school, you can say, okay, I want all files on busy things to be archived, and I want them to take their files with them to the new class. And what that does is every pupil with a pupil ID has their own files area, and in there it will generate an archived folder. And in that will be all their work from the previous years. If you do this once a year, it will just keep populating the archived folder in their files area and can take all their work with them. If you do nothing, this top one, there are still options for the owner of that class to manage the children's files and archive them themselves, so class by class. But this is a way of an administrator just tidying up the whole of the school very quickly. If you're not sure what teachers want to do and you want them to do it themselves, then do nothing. If you want to clean the account up, select archive old files for your school, all busy things, accounts, take the files with them. You can do a mass delete here, delete old files for your whole school. All files will be permanently deleted. So yes, have a good read of these options. I'm going to choose to archive any files that exist on this account and then let the pupils take them with them into their new class. So, okay, that was the very last decision here. So I'm now going to click Start Migration. It doesn't take very long, so it's best not to leave the browser. If you do, it doesn't matter. Next time you log in, it will carry on with the migration. This is a a very, obviously a small example of what you can do. There's not many files. I think I've only got one saved file on here in this account at the moment. So anyway, I'm going to click Start Migration. Okay. So your end of year migration is complete. I can get a little history here. These are previous things that I've done. So this is what I've just done. I've deleted 5 pupils. I've moved 31 of them into a new class. This is just for you to glance at. It's not the finer detail. That's what we've just done here. These are things that I've been doing earlier today to practice for this presentation. So let's go and have a little look at what happened to that archive file. So I believe I'm going to have to struggle now to remember. Before I set up, Ava in Mr. Jones's class moved into class 2, I think, and she should have taken her work with her. So let's have a look if Ava's in there. Yes, there she is. Okay. So obviously, ordinarily these children will have lots and lots of saved files. So I'm going to just show you what I was talking about with the archive files. So Ava actually started in class 1 and we've just migrated her and her friends into class 2. So I'm going to log in as Ava now. She's now in class 2. She used to be in class 1. So they take their ID with them. They don't have a new ID or anything. They'll keep that for the duration. And here's the folder that she will see. So that she's not saved any files yet. This has all been cleaned out and put in here. I just did a couple of pieces of work before we started this demonstration. So this would be full of work that she did in class 1. And this will be clear, ready for the start in September. And it's now in class 2. And because we moved her into class 2, the content level has stayed as class 2 always was, if you see what I mean. So I'll just show you how to be mindful of the content level of these setups. So I'm going to stop using that pupil ID. I'm going to go back and be the admin. And I'm going to go up to teacher admin and manage classes. Okay. So if you look as the admin user, when you manage classes, you see the level here. Okay. Now, if you have just got a quick fix to do and you don't want to go through all the big migration, maybe the whole of class 2 is moving, or for whatever reason, you just want to change this level to year 2 content instead of year 1. Again, like we said, we don't advise doing it this way, but it is easy to do. You can go to settings, change level. And that's a very quick way of sweeping through the content in that class and just upping the level here, or downing the level for whatever reason. It is possible to do it that way. Okay. Right. I think that is it. The other things you can do in teacher admin are review all the messages, the feedback that is going back and forth between all teachers and all pupils. So we do keep a record of that for the school to review at a higher level should they need to. And you can approve teacher email addresses if you want to be extra secure and make sure that nobody can just come along and start creating a teacher ID, then this, if you go in here, you can start to, if you use this option here to approve the school domain. And that means that only teachers with a school email address will be able to create their own ID, or you have you create them for them. Okay, have we got any questions? It is really quite straightforward. It maybe is quite a lot to take in. But as I say, don't be frightened of kind of going wrong, because you can do multiple migrations. The only thing you can't fix is deleting pupils. So just be a bit careful with that one. Right, okay. Thank you, everybody. Bye.